This is lesson 77 of Saxon's Algebra 1, 3rd edition. And this lesson is going to cover two things. First, consecutive odd and even integers, and then second, fraction and decimal word problems. Now, the last lesson we did was on consecutive integers. And if you count consecutively, every time you add 1. You go from 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of those consecutively is one more than the last. If I skip count and I say 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, which would be odd integers, then every time I'm going up by 2, not by 1. The same thing is true if I'm looking for even integers. I'm going from 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and each one of those also increases by 2, not 1. So you can see here that what we learned in lesson 76 about consecutive integers and how to set them up is not true for odd and even consecutive integers. So, and this illustrates how both times it's skip counting. So let's work some problems. This says find 3 consecutive even integers such that the sum of the first and second equals the sum of the third and 10. Alright, let's first get what is going to represent our integers. The first integer obviously is going to be n. The second integer, because we're looking for even integers, is going to be n plus 2. And the third is going to be n plus 4. And then we can get started setting up our actual problem. This says such that the sum of the first and second, so that would be these two, so I'm going to add n plus 2 equals the sum of the third, n plus 4, and negative 10. Then, once I have that set up, all I have to do is add like terms. 2n plus 2 equals n. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. And then if I try to get all my n's on one side and all of my numbers on the other, I can go ahead and do this, get rid of this and this, and now I have n equals negative 8. Now if I add 2 to negative 8, I'm not going to get negative 10. So my integers will be negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Find 3 consecutive odd integers. So there again we're going to have n plus 2, and n plus 4, such that the sum of, which tells me I'm going to be adding the first and the third, which is this one, n plus 4, is 7 greater than the second decreased by 18. So we don't have an equal here. We have is 7 greater than. So that means this side is 7 greater than this side. So to make them equal, I would have to subtract 7 from this side. Okay, and then the second n plus 2 decreased by 18. So then I add my like terms. N plus n is 2n, and 4 minus 7 is negative 3, equals n minus 16. And again, I'm going to move things around like they need to be. And I get n is equal to negative 13. Again, negative 13 plus 2 is not negative 15, it is negative 11. And then the third would be negative 9. This problem says find 4 consecutive odd integers. So I'm going to have n plus 2, n plus 4, n plus 6. Such that the sum of the first and fourth, so n plus 6, is 25 greater than, so I'm going to have to subtract 25 to make it equal to the opposite of the third. So the opposite of n plus 4 is negative n minus 4. Now that I've got that set up, I'm going to add my like terms here. 2n minus 19 equals negative n minus 4. I'm going to add 19 to both sides. I'm going to add an n over here. And then I get 3n equals 15. Divide by 3. N is equal to 5. And if I'm wanting in succession or consecutively the first 4 odd, I would say 5, 7, 9, and 11 would be my answer. All right, the second part of the lesson is fractional and decimal word problems. And the book shows you, and the Algebra 1/2 book also showed you, that when you have these kinds of problems, you can set them up with a diagram. I would prefer to just teach you how to take the words in the problem and turn them into a mathematical equation. All right, so it says Lopez used a 5-iron, and 5-iron is only a type of golf club. It could say putter. We're not going to use that 5 in the problem. But the ball covered only 4/5 of the required distance. If he hit the ball 112 yards, what was the required distance? So again, the first thing you have to ask yourself in any word problem is, do those two numbers, 4/5 and 112, represent the same thing? If they do, they go on opposite sides of the equal. If they do not, they're going to need to go on the same side of the equal and then find n. In this case, the ball, it tells us what the ball actually covered. It covered 4/5. And 112 also stands for how far the ball went. So they do represent the same thing. So 4/5 of n equals 112. And we know that to get rid of this 4/5, we have to multiply by its reciprocal. I'll put this over 1. And that all cancels out. N equals I'm thinking 4 will go into 112. Let's see. Let's see, 28 times maybe. 112, 4, that'll go 2, 8, yeah, 32, and 32 times 5 is 100. Let's see, 15, 140, so that 4 will go into 32, I'm sorry, 8 times. So now we have 28 times 5, and that would give us a total of 140. So the required distance would have been 140 yards. See how easy that is? Maccabee guessed that the total was 30.24. But this, what does this refer back to? It refers to this. 30.24 was 7.2 times the total. So in this one, this tells me, but this was, tells me they do stand for the same thing. So 7.2 times n equals 30.24. And I simply have to do the math. I divide 30.24 by 7.2. And when I do that, my answer will be n equals 4.2. 3/4 of the tickets had been sold. So 3/4 were sold. There were 420 tickets left. What we want to know is how many were printed. Well, in this case, 3/4 and 420 do not stand for the same thing. So I can say, well, what would stand for the same thing then as 420? If 3/4 does not, then it stands to reason that 1/4 does. And so I set my problem up like this. Then I multiply by 4. When I do that, I get the answer is 1,680 tickets. Okay, our practice problems. Find 3 consecutive even integers. So I'm going to have n plus 2, n plus 4. Such that the sum of the first and third, n plus 4, equals the sum of the second and negative 14. Add your like terms. 2n plus 4 equals n minus 12. And then move everything around like it to get it where you need it to be. And you have n equals negative 18. So if negative 18 is n, negative 18, negative 16, and negative 14 would be our answer. Okay, the golfer used a 6-iron, but the ball traveled only 5/6 of the required distance. The golfer hit the ball 180 yards. So this is how far the ball traveled. This is how far the ball traveled. So we set it up 5/6 on one side, 180 on the other side, 5/6 of n. Then I'm going to use my reciprocal here. Cross cancel. Sorry, I made that an n. And 5 will go into 180. Let's see. 36 times. And 36 times 6 is 216. So it should have gone, the required distance would have been 216 yards. Okay, in this one, 7/8 of the tickets had been sold. There were 560 tickets left. 7/8 and 560 do not represent the same thing. If 7/8 does not represent it, then the only other fractional part would be 1/8, and 560 represent the same thing. How many tickets were left? So then I simply do the math. Cross cancel out. N equals 560 times 8. 48.
You in there?
8 times 5 is 40. 44. 4,480 would be our answer. Good job. I will see you back next time for lesson 78.